Welcome back. Prior to the show, we decided the order of our guests by coin toss. Our first guest today is Judge Chris Bruno. Judge Bruno is a native New Orleanian. Judge Bruno is a graduate of Tulane University Law School, where he received his Juris Doctor in 1988. Judge Bruno serves as Chief Judge of the Civil District Court for the Parish of Orleans and is the sitting judge in Division F, and has been there for 11 years, since January of 2009. Judge Bruno has also previously appeared on this show. Welcome back, Judge Bruno.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for being here. Let's get right to our questions, shall we? All right, so first, tell us a little bit more about your background and your experience sitting as the incumbent judge that you believe sets you apart from your opponent as the better person to serve as judge. And what about your past suggests you will serve this community well in the future in the role of judge?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be back here in the new studio. I see it's very modern. So let me start basically with my background. I started developing a passion for the law in 1979 when I was in high school. My dad had a law firm, and my brother Joe and Frank were in the firm at the time, and I started as a legal secretary and really just kind of developed a keen interest in the law because it was, and it's funny, people say your dad make you go to law school, your dad do this, you know, 'cause your dad was a judge. I said, no, we never did. It was just part of my, just kind of intuitive in a way that I just started moving that direction. So I worked throughout high school, college, and then law school. And so I practiced for 20 years as a trial lawyer in Bruno. Had handled hundreds of cases and was getting frustrated in my latter years of working in that practice with the clogged courts, not getting trial dates, taking 5 months to get hearing dates. And I decided at that point in time, I've had 20 years, I was blessed, had a very successful practice. I said, I'm gonna go ahead and make a run for judicial office. I was lucky to be elected in 2008, started my term in 2009, did domestic for 3 years, which was rather enjoyable because you got to see more self-represented individuals and you got more opportunities to talk to them. As opposed to lawyers, there's more formal rules when you're dealing with lawyers as opposed to self-represented litigants. Then I began the regular docket, and that's been the past, from 2012 to present. And I've continued my promise from the get-go, was to run a fair, efficient, impartial docket and always be prepared. And I make sure my lawyers are prepared also. So that's where my record shows that I've done my job. I've handled over 12,000 contested matters in my court, trials, rules, or you know what rules are, and motions. And
well, tell people, what are rules?
A rule is where a case, either the lawyer feels that the case can be stopped or retarded through a legal remedy or a procedural hurdle. If you say, have a claim against XYZ and the law doesn't afford a claim, that would be an exception or a rule, and the case might stop right there and be dismissed. A motion typically is a summary judgment where the facts, that there are no questions of material facts in dispute that the plaintiff who is bringing the action can demonstrate to the court, and that would also result in dismissal. Those are the two mainly things you see, exceptions and motions. And
that's
those
both sides get to argue,
yes.
One in favor of maybe stopping or throwing out the case,
right.
And the other says, hold on, I think my case should get in front of the judge or the jury for a trial on the merits.
Absolutely, and it's a great process. It's used a lot by lawyers, sometimes overused, where there's still really obvious issues that shouldn't be brought in an exception. And so I started innovating ways to get these through the docket quicker. And what I do is I have rules every Friday, substantive rules, are motions and rules. And then, of course, I do discovery rules every Thursday. And I do the Thursday rules so that it doesn't impede the substantive matters because it take a little longer. And I do my discovery rules on an expedited basis because that was another complaint I had. I'm waiting 5 weeks to get a hearing date on a discovery rule, and that's retarding my case in both sides, defense and plaintiff. So I set these within 10 days, and the discovery process moves smoothly. So my philosophy is disclose and disclose often. I tell my lawyers when you meet with me, better disclose if you know any witness's name or document you're going to use. So that's been my and I'm learning. I learn and innovate as I go along. I was talking about before we started about how my pretrial order, I try to modify it when something strange comes up. An unusual issue that I've not prepared for or not had in the past. I said, let me just fix my pretrial order somewhat. So that's what I've done. I've done what I'm supposed to do. I did my job, took an oath, and I'm following my oath.
Okay. And then the application for the future is keep on that same path is basically what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. Keep on the same path, but be able to change and modify, make it easier for people to get through the system. And again, with COVID, it's going to be a whole different animal. We're going to be seeing more Zoom, even after the COVID crisis, cross our fingers, we find a cure or a vaccine for it, but we're going to be using a Zoom platform where you communicate over video, and obviously a digital filing where we can see documents online. I can handle documents online. So that is going to be the innovations that we see in the future.
You have my vote for Zoom. If it's not a critical hearing or motion, let's not clog the courthouses and the parking lots and fill up the rooms with judges.
Right.
Next question. What do you think is the most important role for any judge that the judge plays, not only in the courthouse, but in the community? And how do you believe that you are qualified to help realize that role?
Well, I say it over and over again, accessibility. A judge has to be accessible. And I don't mean ex parte communications. What I mean, when the lawyers want a conference with the judge, and again, with the Zoom platform, 24 hours. Even without it, I was doing 24-hour turnarounds on status. And I tell my lawyers every time they come before me, please use me. Use me. I can be on call 24 hours a day, basically, as a judge. I don't take time. I'm not off the clock as a judge. We are elected to be a judge, and we rent these courtrooms, and we're there for the people. So accessibility, making sure that and one thing I do, and I think is very helpful, I meet with the lawyers on pretrial, so I can make sure I can streamline that case. I bring up things that they're not thinking about. You're going to need an expert witness in this case. How many witnesses are you really going to call at trial? I need to know, because I need to know if I have a jury trial, that those folks coming to serve on the jury can get back to their lives. So that's important. Community service is extremely important. But remember, John, we got to be careful what we do in the public. We're judges. We can't give advice, but we can serve the community, which I've been doing for the past 11 years, and that's the senior community. I've been on the board of directors for Mercy Endeavor Senior Activity Center since 2009 when I got elected. And my goal is to help those seniors enjoy their lives, make friends, socialize, which they weren't otherwise doing before the center became a reality.
Okay. Next question. Do you believe that all citizens have adequate access to legal help in our legal system? And if not, what do you think can be done to provide wider and better access to our legal system? Well,
we always can improve, right? We always know that New Orleans, unfortunately, has a large economically disadvantaged population. And those people can't necessarily afford a lawyer. So that's our crisis, right? We have people who can't afford court fees, and that's primarily in the domestic docket part of our court. And so we do offer those individuals, if they can't afford it, they can file for free, and then the cost will be allotted against the party, whoever it may be, at the end of the case. So the digital platform is important because one of the things we had problems with after COVID was protective orders. As you know, those are predominantly females who are fearing for their lives, are endangered by either a mate or a spouse, and they're coming to the court to be protected. Those scare me because we're giving them a piece of paper. We can't follow them after they leave the courthouse, but we have to make sure they can get to the courthouse. We don't have a method by which that can be filed online, and we're working on that to where they can fill out that form online, get it filed, and get it notarized, which is another issue, notarizing, because the self-help desk is not operating now because of COVID. So we're now having this court reporter swear these individuals in when they come to court. And again, down the line, we'd like to have maybe a kiosk that they can go online and operate from there, or if they're lucky enough to have a computer, which we know is difficult, then would have it through their home system on Zoom to make their complaint via an electronic resource.
Okay. We're doing good on time, so let me ask you maybe a couple more questions. Is there anything that I've yet to ask you about that you think would be helpful for you to tell our viewers about? Something you might like to share to let the viewers know about you and your approach to being a judge, or your way of handling cases or litigants that come before you?
One thing I have to say, John, is that people it's so funny. I run into people, what do you do for a living? I'm a judge. Oh, don't put me in jail. So I think, education about what civil judges do. We don't put people in jail. Now, back up. We do as domestic judges on past due child support when the state brings a child support claim, but those are pretty rough cases.
And let's be clear, there's in civil district court, you've got a domestic relations section.
Right.
Those are judges that handle family cases. And then there's the other judges in civil district court, which is one of the benches that you sit on, which don't handle domestic cases, but you handle all kinds of cases, not criminal, but civil.
And there's a but to that. But when Judge D'Souza went out when her husband died, a few of us got together and asked the Supreme Court Justice Johnson to appoint us to handle protective orders, because we did not want anybody to lose their opportunity to get into the court. Again, accessibility. And so I started doing those protective orders, and quite frankly, I would do them now if I was allowed to. I don't have a problem with taking more work on. My job is to help people, to allow you to have your access to court, to make sure that your disputes are resolved fairly. When you come in my courtroom, I don't care if you're a rich businessman or you're a poor person who has not have two nickels to rub together, you will be treated the same. However, we do have one benefit to self-represented litigants. The canons, Supreme Court canons, allow us to help those litigants. So one thing I certainly do when I'm in court and I have a self-represented litigant, which by the way is rare in a regular docket, I can then allow them a little more leeway in getting documents and evidence and asking questions. And in a judge trial, I can ask questions, so I'll sometimes take over to help them articulate what they're trying to say. I don't try the case for them, I can't do that. But my philosophy has always been, as a judge, I have to know the law. I have to be prepared. And a lot of lawyers don't understand. I expect them to be prepared when they come in my court. And I typically will ask questions of the lawyers. So people need to know when they come see me, I'm going to be ready. Don't think I'm going to be sitting there reading the memos on the bench. I will be ready for your case, because I don't want to let the lawyers waste a lot of time in court, because then their clients are paying those bills, right? So you want to make sure you can get your case in and out fairly, impartially, and efficiently.
Right. Well, we're almost out of time, but we do have time to ask you this. Can you tell us your ballot number and your website information?
Absolutely.
So our viewers can know where to find more information about you?
My ballot number is 74, and my website is judgechrisbruno.com. I'm on Facebook. I don't know how to find all that stuff, but I'm on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. I'm not really social media savvy, but I have people helping me with that. It's so you can access me that way.
Sure.
And I have an email address. You can contact me that way. Ask me questions. I'm always available for questions.
Fantastic. Well, I'm afraid we have run out of the time allotted. Thank you again, Judge Bruno, for being with us today and telling us more about you and your past experience and your future hopes for the bench. We will have to stop there, but we will be back shortly after this break. Stay tuned for our next guest, Attorney Jennifer Medley.